Welcome. This is the Public Works Podcast. My name is Joseph Blackman, and today I got a real treat for you. His name is Jordan Cook, and he is the city administrator for Nevada, Iowa. Jordan, say what's up there, everybody.
How's it going, everybody? Thanks for having me.
For sure. So it's interesting. Before we hopped on before we hit record, you corrected my saying of Nevada. I said Nevada, thinking like, oh, it's Nevada, like Nevada,
Yeah,
Nevada. It's Nevada. Um, so give us a lay of the land, a little bit about me. So I went to school in South Dakota State. So I kind of get the accent. I kind of get how some of the A's turn in instead of bag, like tag. It's a little
yeah.
bit different than the norm, I guess. Well, the norm for the coast people. But give us a lay of the land. Tell us what Nevada, Iowa's like, population, square miles, and all that fun stuff.
Square miles. I don't know if I know the square miles off the top of my head. I could probably figure that out, but I would say it's probably around uh 3 to 4 square miles, maybe at the most, depending on how you really want to check our boundaries. I mean, we actually have. If you want to start on 580th, we technically have land from 580th over to 620th, which would be 4 miles, but there's only a sliver on that avenue that we have for 2 miles before you actually get into town.
Okay.
So
And what
it's a
what
little
were
bit
those
different.
numbers? What were those numbers you just said? 580? Like, what does that mean? That's rocket science to me.
580th Avenue. Yep,
Okay.
580th Avenue, which is also considered Teller Avenue. And then 620th goes over to 610 would be essentially Airport Road. 620th goes, I mean, so that, and it's not even called Airport Road. It's actually West 18th Street, but I refer to it as Airport Road. So, but currently I always kind of make a joke that we're very similar to the shape of the state of Texas. And
Oh,
so,
okay.
yeah, so we go down south as well, a little bit, probably about a mile off of Highway 30, and then we're probably 2 to 3 miles up north of Highway 30 as well. So we kind of have a bigger area. We actually have 80 miles of roads in this community,
Okay.
which is kind of crazy to think about when you're in the community and you're driving around. It's like, wow, 80 miles. But yeah, 80
Yeah.
miles of roads that we have in this community.
Wow.
So Nevada's, we're slightly over 7,000, 7,054, I think was our last soft count for it. The 2020 census was 6,925. So we have grown a little bit. And I think once we get into the next census or have some soft counts, we'll be well over that 7,000, probably that 7,100 mark. And
Okay.
we have three subdivisions that are being built out. One of them already has houses on it, 6 houses on it. The other one is getting ready to build houses on it. And then the third one, which is a little bit north in town, that is also they're going to be starting all the infrastructure for that, hopefully in late May. So we have a lot of room for growth, and
Okay.
we're really excited to see how that fares for the city here in the next
Sure.
5-10 years.
What because when you think of a town, and let us know where you're at, like I guess in regards to like Des Moines, like where you at in the state? Northwest
Yep.
side, northeast side?
So we are on the east side of Interstate 35. We are technically 7 miles from the city of Ames, which is where Iowa
Okay.
State is at. And
Yeah.
then we're really, depending on where you're going to go in Des Moines, we're anywhere from 30 to 40 miles from Des Moines. So
Okay.
uh, we can get down to downtown Des Moines in 35 minutes.
Oh,
But if we want
okay.
to go to West Des Moines, that'll take about 45 minutes in a vehicle.
Gotcha. Because I always like to know what stems the growth for these smaller cities, in the U.S. we know that like there's a huge exodus. Once kids graduate college, they go to the big cities. They don't necessarily go back to the hometowns they're from. So it's interesting that you're still growing and that you're building subdivisions. Is that just a function of, hey, you can get to downtown in 30 minutes, and you can still work from home and live outside of the city without having to commute? Is that the growth?
Yeah, so there's multiple reasons for the growth. One, Interstate 35, that is a large reason. We're real close. We're 5 miles from the interstate. We're 7 miles from Ames. That is another reason for the growth, is because people live here and then go to Ames for work. And then the other thing is we're close to the urban area as well, which is the Des Moines, the bigger epicenters, of Iowa. And so, yeah, so I would say probably those three factors are probably responsible for the growth. We do have
Okay.
quite a bit of industry in the community as well, and that helps out a lot. Burke, which is a Hormel company, they're in our city. We have Verbio, which is an ethanol plant, Lincoln Way Energy, which is an ethanol plant, two different versions of ethanol plants. We have Almaco, which is a machinery company, and all of those companies have quite a bit of a workforce. So anywhere
Sure.
from 78 up to almost 400 people working for them.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. That
yeah.
makes sense.
Plus, we are a county seat as well, which is nice. So that helps with growth as well. And
Sure.
we have our court system that is here in town, so that helps as well.
Okay. Okay. So let's get into a little bit of Jordan's backstory here. So, what got you into the industry, the municipal government industry? Like, was 15-year-old Jordan? Did you say, "Hey, I want to be a city administrator one day"? And kind of, what was your rollout from high school all the way up to today?
So I actually started out in architectural engineering when I went to college, and from a young age, I really wanted to design and build houses and work on different aspects of engineering, civil engineering, so your roads, your water, your sewer, things along those lines, bridges. And then I ended up taking a class when I was at UNO, University of Nebraska Omaha, and it was an urban studies, which basically studies the development and growth of cities. And I just fell in love. And so I graduated with my bachelor's in urban studies. And then, I kind of veered off track. I took a couple of jobs that had nothing to do with local government. It was a nutrition background, and about 3 years into that, I really felt like I wanted to go back to school and figure out what I wanted to do with it. And, I just kind of did a Google search of what jobs were available for urban studies and public administration, and city management came up. And I was like, oh, well, that would be really cool, because then I can really affect growth and development in a positive way, being a city administrator or manager, and so that's kind of what led me getting back into school, getting my master's, and then getting into this. And then so um, during my master's, I was awarded an opportunity to work for the city of La Vista, Nebraska, which is a suburb of Omaha, and I worked in their public works department. I was the intern for the city engineer, and then he kind of promoted me to the assistant to the city engineer. And I just kind of fell in love with public works. We did a lot of different sponsored projects. A lot of wetland, a lot of sewer projects, and there was a big development that was starting then, and it's probably pretty close to being finished over off of 84th Street. I want to say it's called Vision 84. Um, and it was just, everything about it was interesting, and I just kind of fell in love with it, and I knew I wanted to be in city management.
Sure, sure. Good stuff. It's funny. You kind of you said you went a different route, the nutrition routes, and then you came back to it. Just curious and then using your degree. So many of us millennials, like I don't use my degree for what I do. There's so many people I talk to that don't use their degree, and like I don't even know where I would start, to be honest, to like use my degree to like make a career. So it's like
Yeah,
I'm stuck, but it's cool. So let's walk through a normal day for Jordan. Like let's walk through an average Tuesday. You get to the office, you pop in your Jocko supplements, you listen to some Discipline Equals Freedom. So talk us through a day or what it looks like for Jordan. What are you doing all day?
there's not really a normal day in city administration. Um, so I guess a normal day for me would be consist of meetings, policy, emails, fielding calls, talking to citizens, going over projects. We have a lot of projects, and we have had a lot of projects the last 4 years. So currently, we're building a $62 million wastewater treatment facility, and so that consumes a lot of my time during the week, especially about, I want to say it's the second week in every month. We have meetings all day that are regarding that plant, and it's a huge process. There's three phases. There's the trunk sewer line, there's the lift station, and then there's the actual facility itself that has your clarifiers and all of those fun things that you need to process and clean your waste. So um, that's been consuming a lot of my time. The agreements pertaining to that project as well, because there's wastewater development agreements that we have to have in order to make sure that we're in compliance with the uh, DNR and EPA and all of that stuff. So agreements are another thing that I focus a lot of time on, as well as um, those development agreements pertaining to the companies that are within our community.
Okay.
So there's so many things that go on during the day. Some weeks I look back and I'm like, holy cow, I can't believe we did all of that last month, or we did all of that last week, and everything. So we're overhauling some of our ordinances right now as well. So I've been helping out with that and working for that. I have a phenomenal staff. Our public works, our admin, our police, our fire, and they help out quite a bit, which is great. So it makes my life a lot easier having reliable staff on board.
I bet. Yeah, yeah. When you talk about overhauling ordinances, that's one of those things that people don't like change. So they're like, man, what are we doing? Like, what are these new ordinances? So can you give us an example of a couple ordinances that you're overhauling or changing, and then also, where does Jordan go mentally to say, hey, I'm not the guy on the top of the hill shouting down and saying you're going to change this, we're going to change that, and kind of bringing everybody else on board so you have buy-in and not everybody feels like they're being dictated to.
Yep. So some of the things we have to change, it's nothing that we can do about it. It's laws that were affected by the legislation. A perfect example is the tobacco one. The tobacco one is it's 21 years of age in order to purchase and uh, use tobacco products. Obviously, that's been the law since probably the 70s for alcohol, but for tobacco that changed. Um, I think it was July of 2020 or July of 21. I can't remember exactly. So something like that, we've updated it in our system. Everything is good to go. We haven't codified a lot of these, and what that means is basically we get them redeveloped and put them on our website. Some other things that we've done, we've added a golf cart and ATV or UTV ordinance, which allows people to
Interesting.
drive their UTVs and golf carts around the community. So that's a positive one.
That's
Um,
pretty legit.
yeah. So that one wasn't too hard to get people on board on, because it's kind of a fun thing that you can do during the week or during the day or whatever,
Yeah.
is instead of driving a car around. One of the ordinances that we're going through right now is the wastewater charges, and that is somewhat scary. We've been fortunate that we've been able to lower those. So just to backpedal, last year we had to pass an ordinance that would increase the sewer charges from $10 per user to $54 per user per 1,000 gallons. So if I'm using 2,000 gallons of in my house every single month, then I'm going to have a $108 bill associated with wastewater. So what we're doing right now is we're revamping the ordinance that we passed last year to lower that, and we're putting it in tiers. And it's 3 tiers for industry, and then we have your commercial, we have your residential. So now we're able to essentially keep the residential the same of what it is, which is the $10, and then we can change depending on what your waste load is. And so that's kind of what we're going through right now, which it ends up being a little bit cheaper all around. Now we do have to pay for that $62 million plant. So one of the things that we did add to it was an $8 construction fee to that bill, which is a lot smaller than $54, which
I
is
was about
great.
to say,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I'm sure you get some phone calls of $52 a month extra. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. There was a little bit of, I wouldn't say pushback, but fear of how people were going to pay for it. And uh, I don't blame them. I mean, that's a lot of money, you know, but unfortunately we have to be able to pay for the wastewater and provide that service to the citizens. And but we did hire a consultant that kind of went through all of this stuff. We do have a financial advisor, and we were able to kind of change the way it looked and make things work. You know.
yeah, yeah.
So those are just a few of the ordinances. Fee appendix. So basically, if you're a resident and you want to rent a picnic table, we updated those, or traffic cones or things along those lines. We updated all of that stuff. We recently built a brand new field house, which is 3 basketball courts, turf inside, playground area, suspended track for people to walk and run. And so we had to include that in our ordinances because that wasn't previously in there. So, yeah, so
Interesting.
a lot of exciting stuff going on here in Nevada, and unfortunately, updating the ordinance is just
Yeah.
part of the process for it.
So how does it work? Like, in regards to the picnic tables and the cones, like, does somebody walk into your office and say, "Hey, man, we need to change this about the traffic cones," or "Hey, there's, Susie and Sally both wanted to have Johnny's birthday party at the same place at the same time, and we need to find a better system." Like, how does this stuff even come up to a head to be able to be looked at to change an ordinance?
Really, it's the associated costs that it costs us to replace the item or to purchase the item. Fortunately, we've been lucky enough to keep good care of all of the things that we have, so we really haven't had to increase them or increase them a lot over the years. But as far as like facility rental, we have a program that kind of does all of that, does the booking. So if you wanted to rent out the field house on Saturday from 12 to 3 p.m., you'd be able to log on to this rec desk, it's called, and see, oh, well, it looks like Jordan and his family is renting it out from 12 to 3, but it's open from 3:30 to 6:30. So I'll do that instead. So before we were doing it by hand, putting it on an Excel sheet, and that was a gruesome process because it took more hours in the day to work through that. So this rec desk program really helped out.
Sure, sure. Let's say you're mentoring a youngster and they say, "Jordan, what is the one skill set they could pick up to be successful at what you're doing today?" What would that one skill set be?
Uh, Really, I mean, you kind of need a few of them, but you really need to learn to listen. I mean, that's one of the biggest skill sets. Listen and learn how to build relationships. I mean, because that's really what it is. You're building the relationship with the consumer, your resident. Let them know that you care about them. Let them know that they matter. That they're a part of this community and your voice counts. And that's something that I think all of our staff does a very good job at doing. So obviously the budget process, you need to have some financial background, but a lot of that you can be taught, you know. But my thing is I really don't care if you have experience. What I care about is your personality and how you're going to treat other people. So if you're a hard worker, if you have a good, nice, friendly personality, we can train you. We can teach you how to do things. I mean that's it's not like you have to have a an engineering degree to run a forklift or an excavator or something like that. We can train you for that, you know. So really it's about being open about doing things, learning things, and being patient and learning to listen rather than think you know it all.
Sure, sure. All right, it's story time. I need a story from Jordan when something went wrong under your watch, what you did to fix it, and then what lessons you learned from it to apply to your future career.
Um, I'll talk about a story in a different community that I was at, not Nevada, but one of the things that I was tasked with was basically creating a new ordinance that would fine people for violating a nuisance. And so there's a particular business in the community that always had a nuisance issue. You know, they had stuff out in their yard or whatever that really I mean it was just out there. It was a mess. It was on the main vein. Everybody saw it when you came to the town, and that was one of the things I was tasked with was we have never been able to get this cleaned up. You need to get it cleaned up. I said, okay, that's not a problem. So what I did was I changed the fee to a lot more of a higher number to affect that issue, and sent the person the letter and let them know that you're going to be fined to an excess of this amount every single day after the 30 days we allow you to clean it up.
Yeah.
And it was a large amount. It was like $750 a day. So it was
Sheesh.
it was ridiculous, but um, and that did not go over very well at all.
I
Uh,
bet.
and thinking back, I'm like, yeah, that probably wasn't the best approach to do that, and kind of how we worked through that was I went and talked with the person and figured out a different solution, and told them we would help out with this and this. And I don't know if it ever got resolved. I ended up leaving that position shortly after that, and I, I I think the problem is still there, but I do not know, and it's not my problem to deal with anymore. So not too worried about it.
Love it, man. Love it. Just crank up the price and see what happens. All right.
Wasn't the smartest thing I've done in the past, but definitely wasn't the dumbest either. So
There you go. All right. So, what is something that you do monthly, daily, yearly to continue to get better and better? I mean, what's your personal and professional development journey like?
so I definitely go to leadership classes. I go to conferences that really help me learn of different situations that other communities deal with, and see how their reaction is, so I can figure out a better solution for it. I'm all about solutions. I always feel like every problem has a solution, but the problem is finding what the actual problem is before you can find a solution. So I try to listen, get detail, learn about the problem. That way we can find a viable solution. But I really like career development, leadership type of conferences and classes and seminars because I've always said if you're not learning, you're dying. So I always want to learn. I always want to gain more knowledge over something because I feel like I'm probably going to be replaced in the next 5 to 10 years if I don't learn that knowledge or anything. So because everybody's learning. So but leadership development training is probably what I would say that I always do. I do that every year. Last year, I went through a 6 class training session. Basically, it was one Friday every single week for 6 weeks that I went to a class, and I learned about professional development, how to be more effective to your employees, how to um, really drive the bus and get people to get on your bus, which I think there's actually a book that is something like that, something along those lines where,
Yeah.
getting on my bus or something like that. I can't remember what it is, but I would say that's probably the most effective thing. Um, I also encourage my staff to do this stuff as well, because you, you really can't grow as an organization. When I say grow, I don't mean people wise, but grow intellectually, emotionally, if they don't understand what you're preaching to them. And if you can't get them to look outside the box, then it's hard to grow. So I want my managers or my director heads, I want them to be in leadership series and trainings as well, so they can figure out how to be better for their staff as well. Because really, I work for them. I work for the residents. I work for my staff. I work for my council, my mayor. I'm just part of that. I'm just part of this community that is trying to do what's best for it.
Sure, sure. And you talked about nutrition. I see you got supplements. I'm creeping around your office. But what's your supplement
Oh,
stack for
is
the
that
day?
why you said? Is that why you said Jocko? Because I have Jocko back there.
You're probably thinking, why is this
Uh,
guy talking about chocolate?
yeah, I'm like, wow, good guess, man. Wow, that's impressive. I have some carbs back there, protein, and I think I have collagen, which is another protein source. But really, I just stick to carbs and protein on a regular basis. I don't really eat a lot during the day, um, so I try to intake protein shakes because I lose a lot of weight if I don't eat something.
Right.
So I have protein balls in my fridge,
Okay.
um, that are higher carbs, stuff like that I make. It's like 6 ingredients that I use in them. It's pretty awesome. They taste pretty delicious.
Interesting. Usually carbs, like, don't they put you to sleep just trying to digest them?
So the carbs I use are almond flour, oatmeal, raw honey. So the sugar is really what puts you to sleep. I feel it's not the carbs. The carbs and protein obviously will keep you awake. Carbs,
Oh,
depending on what type of carbs, yeah, they will put you to sleep. So if you're doing
gotcha.
those simple carbs like the your breads or something like that, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
sugar, you're definitely going to be crashing. I mean, you see, I have an energy drink.
I know. I saw
Um,
that.
I feel like they don't affect me. I feel like I drink them because they taste good, which is kind of a problem.
Dude, they don't
But
taste good, man.
you got to get the right ones, you know. So, but so yeah, no, I usually get tired in the afternoon if I like work out. I haven't been able to work out the last 2 weeks because I've been busy with stuff. But
Yeah.
typically working out is what kind of wears on me a little bit, and so I need
Yeah.
to have a little pick me up. And those protein bars actually provide me with a little bit of energy in the afternoon too.
Okay.
So it's pretty
Well,
nice.
talk about the importance of just overall eating right, exercising, in the workplace or even career wise, because there's so many, like, if you work in certain positions, there's so many lunches you can do, and there's always like donuts on the front counter, and there's always like pizza parties and stuff like that, and how you can lose time or even efficiency, like I said, just being tired at like from 1:30 to 3 o'clock, or even you get to the office and you're not even awake until 10 a.m. Like, what, just talk about the importance of keeping that diet tight so you can perform for your full 8 hours.
Well, your diet, I mean, diet is huge in all aspects. I mean, what you put in your body is how you're going to feel later on. So if I'm eating, your pizza and your things that aren't really good for you, healthy for you, one, that's going to do a couple of different things. You're going to get tired. You're going to get sluggish. your brain capacity, your mental capacity, that's not going to be on point. The clarity, the sharpness, that really is affected by what you eat. So if you put good, clean things in your body, you're definitely going to be a little sharper, a little more clear. Things are going to make sense a little bit better for you. Exercise is the same thing. You need to be able to relieve stress. You really need to kind of just, I mean, really, it's not about necessarily going and pumping a whole bunch of iron or running a marathon during your lunch break. It's really about just breaking the sweat, getting your heart rate up, and kind of relieving some of the stress that you're doing. And I would say
Sure.
exercise is probably the one thing that really helps with the stress that I deal with on a regular basis.
Sure. Totally
You
agree
know,
with that. All right, let's say we ask your wife's best friend or somebody that knows you. They don't exactly work with you, but they know you work for the city. Um, and we asked them like, what does Jordan do all day? What value does he provide to the community? What what would they get totally wrong in answering that question?
well, I don't think you want to ask my wife because she probably would be like, I have no idea what he does for the community. But I was at a little get together probably about, it was actually last summer. I was at this get together, and I was sitting next to this lady, and she's like, gosh, what are you guys doing in Nevada? And I said, well, why do you ask? She's like, things have just been happening there, like you have new things going on all the time, and she's like, well, how long have you been there? I'm like, well, I've been here since July 2020. And she said, well, it actually all kind of started when you got there. A lot of things have changed. And my response was, well, one, I have very high expectations. I want to see a lot of growth. I want to see things happening. But at the same time, we have a lot of great leaders in our community. Our economic development, our Main Street, which is somewhat like a chamber, um, our county, our hospital, we all collaborate and we all work together and we all work to get things done and completed. And so I would say that's probably what people, I would hope, notice the most, is that we're very proactive in trying to get things accomplished and get things done. I told you a little bit ago we have a lot of projects going on. So this year we finished our field house. We're working on getting our wastewater treatment plant finished. We're going to be working on a splash pad for an addition to our water park or aquatics park. We have a new trail that we're adding on the east side of the community. It's about a mile long trail that connects to a lot of our other trail system. We have a sponsored project that's going to be updating, renovating a whole bunch of wetland space and creek areas. We have $3 million of road projects going on this year. Our Main Street, we're working on doing a CDBG, which is a community development block grant we're going to be doing a facade program. So basically giving the front of their buildings a facelift to look a little bit uh, better. Not that they're bad right now, but they'll look a little bit more presentable and add to our downtown. We just finished a $9 million downtown project 2 years ago that basically renovated everything downtown, the streets, the lights, the sidewalks, all of the infrastructure underground. So we just have a lot going on, and I think a lot of people have noticed that the last several years.
Yeah. Sheesh. Sounds like you got a lot of irons in the fire. And is it more so just like a juggling act? Like you're making sure everything is moving forward at a decent pace? And are there ever times where you're like, man, I got too much going on. I'm super stressed out. And then also, how does Jordan like kind of step away and mindfully, woo-saw just to come back recharged? Like how do you let your hair down?
Well, I've always been like being busy. I've always said the more that we have going on, the better off I'm going to be mentally. Um, and I work good in a busy atmosphere. So like I would be really bored and I'd probably be really tired if we didn't have things going on a regular basis, and that would really kind of bug me. Now we're going to be getting to the point where it's like, holy cow, we have all of this stuff done. what do we do next? But fortunately, we created a 2040 vision plan that basically outlays our or outlines the next 20 years of Nevada's future on what we want to do. And so um, we have a lot of things that we want to accomplish on that list, and we're working through that list on a yearly basis, really updating it quarterly. And then how do I let my hair down? Well, I go work out. I mean, that's something that helps me relax, helps me calm down. Uh, Hang out with my son, my wife. I mean, my son is at a really fun age right now. He's not even yet a year. He'll be a year at
Yeah,
the end of May. So he's at that stage where, he thinks dad's a mountain, so he just climbs all over me, and it's hilarious. So that's something that I really do to relax, is just hang out with
yeah.
him. Um, I work on things. I tinker. I'm restoring a motorcycle right now, as well
All
as a
right.
golf cart. So I
Golf cart.
mean, yep. So I find joy in doing all that stuff. When Remy, my son, gets older, I'd like to restore a car with him.
Nice.
But we'll see. Yeah, golfing. Love to golf.
Okay.
Haven't had time to golf yet, but I'd like to get out there here in the next
Sure.
couple weeks to do that.
Sure. Sure.
Yep.
Good stuff. All right. Let's say you're commissioned to put up a billboard, and this billboard is in the most trafficked area of Nevada. What ask of your community, let's say in regards to public works, would you put on this billboard?
Flushable wipes aren't flushable. Just
Come on,
kidding.
everybody says that, man. Come on, do something new.
Yeah, no. Um, that's a tough question. Um, Maybe something to do with our streets or our wastewater plant, about the process of cleaning. Really kind of a cycle of how your waste is cleaned. That way people better understand that. Because what a lot of people don't know is, after it's cleaned, after it's processed, it goes into the streams, the creeks, the things like that. And people probably think it's dirty, but it's actually clean enough that you can drink it.
Okay.
I've never done it. I've heard one of our former supervisors at the wastewater treatment plant used to do that. But uh, that's probably what I would do, is I'd probably put the cycle of the waste on there. That way people
Sure.
understood that a little bit better, and how important it is to really a healthy lifestyle. I mean, because there's a lot of
Yeah.
diseases in your waste, and
Yep.
that can get out of hand pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's so interesting. You said there's a 62, $63 million water treatment plant you're putting up, and I'm sure a lot of the constituents don't know like what the wastewater treatment facility does, why it costs so much. They're all thinking like, "Oh, my bill's gonna go up." But when you show them like, "Hey, here's how it actually makes life better when it's when a treatment facility is working efficiently and functioning properly, it actually makes everybody's lives better and
Yep.
helps paint that picture." You know.
Yep. Exactly.
All right. I always like to leave a space on the show for you to thank mentors you had along your journey. And then also, I want you to give a word of inspiration and motivation to your fellow, let's say, city administrators, counterparts around the country.
Yeah. So I would say, the one mentor that uh, I really have the most respect for, and I felt like I learned the most, was John Cotman. He was the city engineer for La Vista, Nebraska, and I just want to thank him, because he really gave me a different perspective. He really taught me to look outside the box, and he also taught me not to let things bother me, because he didn't. I mean, you could scream at him for hours in a day, and he wouldn't scream back. He would just listen to you, and he would soak it all in. So I would say that's probably the one mentor that I always bring up to other people, that, man, you, if you would learn from him, you would gain so much knowledge. And he's just a very knowledgeable person, and the stand up person. And then The thing that I would say for inspiration, and I do not know who wrote this, so I can't quote them correctly. I've been told it was Gandhi, but I don't know if it's Gandhi or not because I did research on it and it wasn't Gandhi. But be the change you want to see in the world. So it starts with you. So if you're going to be negative to people, guess what? People are going to be negative to you, and it's going to spread negativity. But if you're positive, if you share positivity, if you respect people, that's going to show, and positivity will spread as well.
Sure, sure. It's good stuff. All right, I'm coming to town. I'm coming to Nevada. I text you ahead of time. I say, hey, Jordan, where can I go to get the best burger in town? Where are you going to send me?
Right now, we don't really have any burger joints. So, we have
Yeah.
McDonald's,
Oh,
but pretty shortly we're going to have TE Alderman's that will be opened up, and that will be a burger joint, and that'll be a really really good place. I believe you can get a burger over at Cubby's on Main, but if you want to have some of the best pizza in town,
okay, let's
uh,
hear it.
you can either go to Cubby's on Main or Alley's Pizza. Both really delicious. Alley's Pizza has some of the best cheesy breadsticks you'll ever have in your life.
Like it.
Cubby's has a really good pizza. It's called the Georgia Special, which is sausage, onion, green bell peppers. It's amazing, and I'm not even really a big sausage on pizza fan. So, but that's what I get every time I go there. They also have really
Okay.
good fried chicken as well. So, yeah,
Interesting. Interesting.
it's actually broiled chicken. Sorry, not fried.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
and that's only every Wednesday, but I'm telling you, it's amazing. Yeah,
All right.
you wouldn't
We know
think,
where to.
yeah, you wouldn't think that with a pizza shop, but yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, we all know where to find Jordan on Wednesdays. Just get this broiled chicken on his pizza.
there you go.
It's funny. We had Cubbies in Brookings, when I was in school there. So it's so funny to hear that name again, Cubbies. Like, oh, Cubbies again.
Yeah,
But Jordan, thank you for hopping on the podcast, man. Thanks for sharing your wealth of information and knowledge. All the listeners out there, make sure you share this with somebody who you think needs to hear it. Jordan, any final words before we get out of here?
thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Sure.
If you can think of anything else, feel free to reach back out, and hope it's interesting for your listeners. So thank
For
you.
sure. Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you. Thanks for hopping on the show. And this has been the Public Works Podcast.